From buildings and bridges to famous landmarks, these Knoxville model makers are members of an adult Lego club. The replicas they build are full of teamwork, engineering, and architecture, just like the real thing.
So my design of the Henley Street Bridge is based on a little bit of both the original structure and the new. As I was researching it, TDOT was actually gracious enough to provide plans for the original. So I had the original blueprints to work with, but I also had photos that I'd been taking of the resurfaced bridge. We turned it into a club project just because it's such a massive undertaking. There's over 70,000 parts in the bridge itself.
According to LEGO's official guidelines, the word LEGO is an adjective and is to be used to describe LEGO pieces, LEGO sets, or LEGO bricks. It is not a noun, so according to LEGO themselves, LEGO is not a thing, it's a type. I have one room filled to the brim with LEGO and several other rooms that we say we keep the LEGO out of, but it still finds its way there. It migrates from room to room. With LEGO, there's this inherent joy and imagination that comes from taking these pieces that can be literally anything and picturing something in your mind and putting them together and creating this thing, even if it's a very poorly rendered version of what you had in your mind. You've created this thing that previously you only imagined. It's not a toy that is something, it's a toy that's everything. To this day, I still remember the very first LEGO set I ever built. It was a LEGO space set in, I believe, 1992. It was released. It was the Blacktron Trike. I remember sitting in the kitchen with my dad and mom, and they had gotten it for me. I was maybe 3.5 years old, and I remember my dad helping me find the pieces and putting them together. And it's one of those, I still have it to this day. There are several sets that just spark specific memories, and I have more of a kind of a sentimental attachment to those sets. To this day, my grandmother will remind me about the piece of dragon fire that we lost in the car on the trip from Florida probably about 20 times, and we had to stop the car and halt everything while we dug around trying to find the little piece of fire that had fallen out of the dragon's mouth. I'm Marty Mitchell. I'm with the Tennessee Valley Lego Club. I'm the vice president of the Knoxville chapter. We formed about 3.5 years ago, and the club itself has been around for about 10 years now. Lego is really not just for kids. It's this thing that so many people are introduced to as a child, but you hear story after story of parents going and digging up their old Lego sets or everyone has a big tub of Lego sitting somewhere in their attic or at a parent's house, and they'll go dig them up and start building these sets with their children or with their nieces, nephews, these young children. And I can't tell you how many members of our club have the same exact story where they had a child, they dug out their old parts and started building and realized this is something I still want to do every day. In August of 2018, we did our second participation with Brick Universe. It's a traveling Lego art expo, and they also bring in local builders to showcase their creations. And shows like that are the high point of the club, personally, for me. It's where we get to bring the best of the best that we've created and show it off not only to other Lego fans, but we get to show it to kids and their parents. And this is where we see people coming in and their faces just light up because they've never seen this many Lego pieces in one place at a time. You just sort of get to interact with people and talk about what you've built and see the smiles that you bring to faces. The highlight of the show as far as local landmarks is the Henley Street Bridge, which Pete Campbell, the club president, designed over the course of years.
My design of the Henley Street Bridge is based on a little bit of both the original structure and the new. As I was researching it, TDOT was actually gracious enough to provide plans. You know, once they find out you're doing this out of Legos, everybody starts to get excited. And so I found a really good resource there at TDOT who was very supportive, supported what we were doing and said, let me provide you with these plans. They provided a historic report that had been done prior to the rebuild of the bridge and offered to provide any other photos that we needed or anything like that. So it was just really well received. And so that made, the planning and the design of the model a whole lot easier. We'll do the paper sketches, we'll get the scale right, and then we'll transition to a computer design. So by the end of it, I've got a full design built up in the computer that can basically serve as more or less an instruction manual, and it also generates a part list. And then I can go order those parts that I don't have, and after 4 or 5 months of that, and I've found everything, which is usually how long it takes, I've still got instructions that I can go follow to, go build this thing long after I've forgotten how it goes together.
The Knoxville chapter of the club came together over several weekends and built, just out of nothing, had this 20-foot bridge rise up out of the Lego pieces, and that was the single biggest local landmark. Everyone who drives by it, people in Knoxville know the Henley Street Bridge. It's just something that if you are in and around downtown, you either drive across it or you walk by it every single day.
It's really neat, especially with something of that scale. One, it's a local landmark, so a lot of people recognize it and you get a lot of good reactions, but the scale of it is such that, that generates its own reaction. There's over 70,000 parts in the bridge itself. We didn't have the lights turned on for a while, and you turn those on and people aren't expecting that, and that's a whole new reaction. So the lighting system that we put into the bridge is based on the actual bridge. The goal was to be able to reproduce anything that the real bridge does. Part of the research for that was I contacted the city engineer that runs that software. He's in charge of the lights for the Henley Street Bridge. So we met one day and he showed me the software they were using, and we kind of talked about the protocol and how it's controlled and all that kind of stuff with the real bridge. Turns out that it's a very common protocol, so if you go to a concert or a theater event, the lighting system, that's running that show, it's kind of an industry standard, and the Henley Street Bridge uses the same industry standard. So the model uses that standard. It's a big enough model and there are enough individual lights on it that you have to have a way to control over 500 separate lights on the model. We built up our own hardware, kind of using that protocol, and it plugs into just an off-the-shelf lighting controller. You could plug it into the same one that runs the Henley Street Bridge and it would run the model. So that was pretty cool. We took it to Chicago for Brick World, which is the largest Lego fan convention in the US, maybe even the world. You've got representatives from Lego there. The owner of Lego has attended in the past. It's a very big convention and kind of the one everybody wants to go to if they've got a chance. And it actually won Best in Show in 2018, and it also won Best Lit Model in 2018, which was just a huge honor. So we were really, really excited, for the model and for everybody in the club that had a part in it for those awards.
You can build anything you want out of Lego, provided you have the patience, the will to make it, and enough pieces.
I think it's just, even though you've got all these wonderful video games and digital distractions nowadays, that you've still got a toy that's true to its roots, that's something, that you can touch and feel and create with. I kind of think that's the magic of the medium.